It's time for the November refines, and this is one of the batches I have been anticipating for a very long time. So let's go ahead and jump in and talk about all the crazy refines and remixes and about some of my favorite characters in the game who are finally good again. Let's start off with one of the outcasts of this banner, Odor. Now Odor obviously is known for not being the best anima mythic in the world and for some funny memes, but let's jump into his refine because I think it's actually not terrible. So we have Auto Liffendider. This grants attack +3. You get Canto 3 during turns 1 through 4 still. If you initiate combat or within 2 spaces of an ally, you're still getting that attack +6. You're inflicting attack -6 on the foe. You're getting a guaranteed fall attack. The foe cannot make a guaranteed fall attack, which is some nice little bonus there. And you're also getting full damage reduction piercing when your special procs. And remember, his PRF special pre-charges itself, so it's pretty easy for him to have that, though he is a bit weak to Scowl. Then we have the Astral Refine itself. Once again, you meet that HP condition. You get to grant yourself and allies, unit cannot be slowed by terrain. And this is a very powerful effect. This is one of the effects we've seen on like Katie and Lynn and that whole banner and a few other units as well, like Arlen, right? And this effect is really strong in summoner duels because on certain maps, the way they kind of like stop Cavs from just dominating is by using trenches, and this allows you to get through that. Now, the thing is right now, you're kind of relying on Katie and Lynn or Arlen, and they both have their major weaknesses. Katie and Lynn's kind of fallen off when it comes to damage output, so she's mostly there just for that reason, which kind of sucks. And then on the other hand, you have someone like Arlen, who's decent, but really doesn't contribute all that much to the team, other than maybe like Canto control. And so when you have someone like Odor, who can actually do decent damage, and he's a melee cav, which means he can run like the Sigurd ring and have 4 movement, this is really nice support. It's very solid support, and on top of that, you also give out Insider, which means they just get more stats offensively, which is great as well. So some really solid support for Odor when it comes to like summoner duels or like those cav line maps. When it comes to Aether defense, it's still good, but I don't think it's necessarily as strong there. Then, of course, once again, if you hit that HP condition, you get attack, defense, and res +5 during combat. You get to inflict a penalty on the foe's attack and defense equal to the current bonus they have, so you kind of like get to swap that around, right? Going from like an offensive to like a defensive stat swing. And then lastly, you get true damage equal to 20% of your defense during combat. Now, before we talk about this entire refine, let's look at his remix. Okay, so we have Brutal Shell. This is a 3 cooldown special, and at start of turns 1 through 4, you're going to recharge that special. So you can just keep hitting that special over and over again every turn, which is cool. When special triggers, you get to boost damage by 50% of the greater of Odor's defense or the foe's defense, so a nice little like weird adaptive damage there. And then if the unit or foe's special is ready or triggered, before or during combat, you're going to get 40% non-pierceable DR, so kind of like an armored beacon, right, or like an armored flow or something like that, but it is for ranged and melee units. So when it comes to this actual remix, I think this remix is pretty much completely garbage. It's really not great at all. I think they could have put like DR piercing here instead of on the weapon and then had another effect for the weapon. This is just really underwhelming. But when we look at the entire refine and remix, I think it's overall pretty decent. It's definitely not going to make Odor like a meta anima mythic, or even meta in like summer duels, but it is good. Like it lets him offer some nice support. It lets him do a lot better in combat, letting him just hit harder and get through damage reduction, which is a big thing. So I think overall this is a very solid refine, and does make Odor usable at least, which is a big thing for him because honestly he was arguably like one of the worst anima mythics in the entire game, which is a lot to say considering all the anima mythics we currently have. Okay, with that said, let's move on to one of the fan favorites, Shamir. So we have Shamir with Survival as Bow. This gives slaying, you still have effective versus flying, and then if you initiate combat or if the number of allies adjacent to unit is less than or equal to 1, you're going to get that attack and speed +6 during combat. You're going to get a special jump of 1 during combat, which is also really nice before your first attack. And then also, if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 50% at start of combat, you'll also get a sweep effect. So mostly the same as your base weapon, other than that big special jump, and just making some conditions a little bit easier. Then we have the Refine at start of turn. If unit's HP is greater than 25%, you're going to inflict a visible speed and defense -7 debuff and sabotage on the closest foe and foes within 2 spaces of those foes through your next actions. Very nice global debuff, offering some nice support for Shamir, allowing to flex that like more support nuke role. And then also at start of combat, if her HP is meeting that HP condition of 25%, she'll get another attack and speed +6 during combat. She'll neutralize her penalties to attack and speed, and she'll get 20% true damage based off her speed, but not with AoEs. Okay, so overall, how good of a refine is this really? I think this is a solid upgrade for Shamir. It allows her to do what she was already doing, just a little bit better, right? She now has a way to easily proc a Deadeye without having to run something like Time's Pulse. She can essentially hit it on the second hit pretty consistently, even when the foe can't counterattack, which is important because she has a sweep effect in her weapon. She has more stats, which she desperately wanted, and some nice debuffs. Sabotage is quite good overall. It definitely gets ignored sometimes because it's not as common as it once was, but it is a good support. And then neutralizing her own attack and speed penalties is also really nice as well. And of course, the true damage to actually allow her to hit pretty hard. I don't think this remix is going to make Shamir like some crazy top tier nuke or anything like that, but I definitely think it makes her usable. And with the proper build, she can definitely kill some things. Now the question is, can she kill like meta shield fighter units? Probably not, especially when you have a unit like Duo Fjorm who has NCD in her weapon, or even Ike, right, with his NCD. I think that will definitely be something she still struggles against. But against those units who don't have like an NCD effect, she can definitely hit them pretty hard, even if she can't kill them. So overall, pretty solid refine for Shamir. Okay, let's move on to one of my favorites, Jill. I've been waiting for this refine for a very long time, and it's finally here. So we have Towering and Axe that says Slang, and then if unit initiates combat, or if they're within 2 spaces of an ally, you get attack speed +6 during combat. You get special acceleration, and once again, if you initiate combat, you get Desperation. So that, not the biggest change to her base weapon here. Mostly you're just getting that special acceleration here, which is nice. It's definitely not a bad effect to have. Not necessarily the greatest effect, now that we have special jump in the current game, but definitely not something to sleep on. We then also have Enables Cancel Remaining +1, allowing Jill to have that extra mobility, which is very key as a melee flyer. And then at start of turn, if she's within 3 spaces of an ally, with range equaling of 1, so like a melee unit, right? You get attack and speed +6 to them as a visible bonus, you get extra movement, and you get null follow-up to all allies within 3 spaces with that 1 range. Now, this is kind of like a snap effect, right? The big difference is that it affects more movement types, including melee calves, which is a really big deal because melee calves are the units who really want that 1 extra movement, right? Being able to go from a 3 movement calf to a 4 movement calf is a very big deal. And what this allows Jill essentially to do is act as this movement support while also giving out NFU, which is also a very key effect you do want. And it allows you to like run Sigurring on somebody else or like a different team, maybe in like SDS, right? I think this is some really cool niche support, but still very, very cool. And it also helps Jill out too, right? Because Jill wants that extra movement. She wants NFU desperately, so that helps her out a lot. So I really love that. The visible bonuses as well are nice. But then, of course, if at start of combat, if you meet that HP condition 25%, you get another attack and speed +6 during combat, and you get 20% true damage based off your speed during combat with no AoEs, though. Overall, this is a pretty solid refine. It definitely gives Jill some of the key effects she really needed. She absolutely desperately needed like a null follow-up effect. Even if it was just offensive null follow-up, she needed that because you really don't want to run a flow skill in her B slot. It's really not that great for her. So being able to run something else is a very big upgrade there. She also wanted that +1 movement, right? It lets her have that extra mobility, and it works really well with the cancel remaining. The true damage is very, very key because she needs to be able to kill things, and without true damage, you're really not killing much nowadays. The big thing for me that is really missing from this refine overall is anti-guard. She really, really wanted anti-guard because if she had anti-guard, she could pretty consistently hit no quarters on the second hit, which now she's a little bit weak to guard, right? Or even like defensive tempo, which can also turn off her specials. And because she doesn't have DR having or DR piercing in her weapon, she's pretty much reliant on no quarter. So that's pretty much the biggest weakness for Jill in my opinion. You're essentially going to go into combat, hit once, and then pop a no quarter hopefully, but it's not very consistent. There's a lot of ways to disrupt that. And so what you'll need to do is either have like a special jump support like Nephany or Regan, or you'll have to run like Marthring possibly so that it's more consistent. It's a little bit more of a hoop you have to jump through to get the full advantage of Jill's nuking, but she is overall quite solid in my opinion as an offensive melee flyer. That's the role she wants to play, right? She wants to be very mobile, go in and kill things. So I think she does have a lot of options for her build, right? Because she has a lot of the key effects she needs already in her weapon. Now the question is like, what builds do you go? That's something we'll have to figure out. I'm gonna spend some time on that. But she does work well into stuff like Wyvern Rift or like Assassin's Strike or stuff like that, right? Where she can just go in full damage and just try to avoid combat with enemies on like player or on enemy phase, or she can go for like a more other build because she does have full null follow-up, which means she can deny follow-up attacks. So it's really interesting. I'm overall happy with this refine. I think it's a solid refine. It definitely makes Jill much more usable and powerful, and I'm glad they offered a little bit of support in there so that she'll age a little bit better. With that said, let's move on to our other melee flyer, Dithorba. So we have Heavenly Icicle. This inflicts speed defense -5 on foes within 3 rows of 3 columns centered on herself. They also cannot make follow-up attacks, and they suffer guaranteed follow-up attacks as well. So this is some nice little support here, offering some stats, also adding that follow-up denial, and that like crux effect, right, which gives you the guaranteed follow-up attacks. Pretty solid there. And then once again, at start of combat, she makes that HP condition. She'll inflict attack -5 on the foe during combat, and she'll reduce damage from the foe's first attack by 40%, and that is brave damage reduction. Then in her refine, she just enables Cancel Rem +1, and then if she initiates combat, or if there's an ally within 3 spaces, she'll inflict attack speed defense -5 on the foe. She'll neutralize foes' bonuses to attack speed and defense, so a nice little dual effect there. And then she'll get true damage, which is equal to X times 4, where X is the number of allies within 3 spaces of herself, and the number of foes within 3 spaces of the unit she's attacking, a max of 16 true damage. Okay, so overall, what do I think of this refine? I think this is okay. It's not terrible, but it's not great. And the thing is, you have to really think about is like, who is Dithorba competing with, right? And when it comes to a support perspective, we have units like Ashnard and most notably Sedith in that role. And I think both of them do a better job offering support than she does, especially Sedith. Sedith is just way, way better in my opinion. The stats are nice, but like follow-up denial isn't all that amazing because like if they have a guaranteed follow-up attack of their own and they outspeed, then it will still go through. And if they have like offensive no follow-up, it automatically goes through. So I don't think that's all that great. The crux effect is nice, but once again, not like anything insane. You can kind of just get that from your C skill, so not the biggest deal there either. Her damage reduction is pierceable, which means that she'll be kind of tanky, but there's a lot of ways to get through that. Her mobility is nice, and the extra stats are nice, and even the true damage can be quite good, but is completely based off positioning. So once again, if you're like attacking into a foe who's by themselves, or you're by yourself, it's not going to be easy to get that max true damage of 16, because you need 4 allies or 4 foes around, right? Like that's quite a bit to have to get the max true damage. And so when it comes to Dithorba overall, I think the refine is definitely usable. You can definitely make her work with the proper build, but it's nothing insane. I don't think she really competes with a lot of the high-end melee flyers we currently have, like let's say like Summer Mia or like Sedith, right? So overall solid, but nothing really amazing to talk about. Okay, so we have one of our OG mage tanks, Guinivere with Aureola. This grants res +3. You get effective against mages. You restore 7 HP to unit and allies within 2 spaces of unit after combat. Some nice healing support there. If she initiates combat, or if there's an ally within 2 spaces of her, she's gonna get all stats +5. She's gonna disable adaptive damage. She's also gonna get true damage equal to X, and she'll get flat damage reduction equal to 40% of X versus the foe's first attack, where X equals the highest total bonuses on Guinevere herself or any allies within 2 spaces. So this is a nice little effect. It'll allow Guinevere to hit quite harder, but at the same time, the DR is good. It's definitely good, but it's not quite the amount we were hoping for, right? 40% of X with visible bonuses will typically be like on like a total of 24 bonuses. So it will be somewhere around like 10. So you get like 10 flat DR. It's definitely not bad, but it's not like nothing insane or like completely broken. Then we look at the actual refine. At start of turn, if she's within 2 spaces of an ally, she'll give out a visible speed and res +6 and neutralizes penalties to herself and allies within 2 spaces. So some nice little support there that will help her out a little bit. And then if the foe initiates combat, or if the foe's HP is greater than or equal to 75%, you'll get all stats +5 during combat. You'll get to neutralize effects that inflict guard, so you get that anti-guard effect, and you'll get to inflict guard on the foe yourself. So overall, I think this refine is good. It lets her run like a Lagoo's Friend 4 build. She doesn't have slang, which means you can run flare on her and it will still activate that condition. She also has anti-guard, which means she'll always retaliate with flare, which is nice. And if you run something like Times Pulse, either in like the Echo skill or the C slot, she can always like use the Ike Ring with Lagoo's Friend 4 to have that non-pierceable DR, which is quite nice as well. Overall, my biggest problem with Guinevere isn't like her effects being necessarily bad, is that mage tanks just aren't currently used very much. You'd pretty much have to run her alongside, let's say, like a near save and then try to have her tank that way. The problem is like her defense isn't amazing. So if she runs into something like, let's say, a Brave Bernadetta or even like the new Ninja Duo Lucina, she's gonna explode, right? Like even with the flat DR and stuff like that, her defense is just so low that it's gonna be difficult for her to take on the full plethora of ranged threats. She really can only focus on mages. She'll do very well against mages because she has effective damage and a lot of like resistance, right? But when it comes to like defense targeting enemies, it's definitely gonna be a bit more difficult. And so what I really think they should have done is like given her like adaptive defense, where like her res stat could be used for a defense stat. That would have made her a lot better. But as it is right now, I think she'll just be a solid mage tank. but at the same time, mage tanks just aren't in demand right now. So overall, once again, a good refine, nice upgrade for Guinevere, but nothing meta shaking or like crazy. Speaking of crazy though, let's talk about Thorr. So we have War God Mjolnir. This has slaying effective versus armor foes, and at the start of combat, if you meet the HP condition, you'll get attack +6 during combat, you'll inflict attack -6 on the foe during combat, you get guaranteed follow-up attack, you get 15% true damage based off your attack, and you get to neutralize the foe's bonuses during combat. So this is pretty similar to her base weapon, with a little bit of an upgrade with that true damage. And also some easier conditions. Then we go to the actual refine. This has Canto 2, which is, oh, that's so nice. Also, if you meet the HP condition, once again, you'll get another round of attack +6 and another attack -6 on the foe. You'll get 50% flat DR based off of your attack, and then you'll also get like an ice mirror effect, right? Like that damage reflection, and it's based off any source of DR you get. So you do have some in your weapon, but you could also stack more like in your B slot, which could help too. And it'll allow her to just reflect all that damage back, which is really, really nice. Damage reflection is super good right now. And then lastly, when your special triggers, you get to neutralize non-special damage reduction. So you get that DR piercing. Now let's move on to her actual remix. We have World Breaker Plus. So this has allies within 2 spaces of unit can move to any space within 2 spaces of unit. Right, this is Guidance 5, the Omni Guidance we saw with like, let's say, Ashe, or with like Legendary Alencia, who's not very well known for it. This is a very, very powerful effect, really strong, super glad to see this here, this is nuts. You'll also get attack, defense, and res +5 during combat, and special acceleration for Thorr. And before her first attack, she'll get special jump 2, which is crazy. Then lastly, of course, she has her supportive effects, where she gets attack, defense, and res +4 to her allies, and special acceleration to those allies within 3 spaces now instead of 2, so nice little range extension there. They also get special jump 1 before their first attack during combat. This is some amazing support. This is like one of the best remixes we've ever had. It went from just special acceleration to just every effect you could want, right? You're getting warping, you're getting special jump, which lets you get past guard. It works with Gale Force, which is a very big deal, and you're even getting stats on top of it. This is just a top tier, amazing remix for Thorr. Now, let's talk about her overall upgrade with the refine included. Now, this refine is honestly really good. It has a lot of the effects she wanted. It made it a lot easier to get some of the effects she had already, like the dual effect now doesn't require her to be like solo or anything like that. She gets the stats she needs. She gets true damage, which means she gets easier kills. She has Canto 2, which is a really big deal for Gale Force units, as it allows her to position herself better to not only like let other people teleport in with her own guidance, but also let other people just come in to get into Gale Force range, right? So they can start attacking the foe. Very, very strong there. She even gets some flat damage reduction, which makes it easier so she doesn't explode in retaliation. Damage reflection helps her damage. Everything almost seems perfect, right? This almost seems like a perfect remix. There's only one thing missing, and that is damage reduction halving. And you might be looking and say, well, she has damage reduction piercing. That's really good, right? Yes and no. So damage reduction is very nice, but the thing is that Thorr is a Gale Force unit. She doesn't want to use an offensive special, really. She really wants to use Gale Force, because that's like allows her to either be an initiator or a follow-up unit, right? And so that's the one real big problem here, because if you're using Gale Force, that effect essentially doesn't exist in her weapon. And she does want damage reduction, like piercing or halving, right? She needs that to kill a lot of meta threats. So I think that's the one major downside that's like holding Thorr back from just being like one of the best Astra Mythics in existence. I think if she had that, like it would be the most perfect refine we've gotten in a very long time. Without it, it's still good. I think Thorr can still kill things, especially with that damage reflection will definitely help carry her a bit in her damage capabilities. But I really do wish she had some type of piercing. That would help her a lot more. So the question then becomes like, do you run Thorr with like a damaging special and don't really go for the Gale Force? Do you like just go in, have her kill one thing and then support? Or is she gonna just run Gale Force and try to like make the best of it? And that's a question we'll have to figure out with some testing to see exactly how she performs. But overall, I do think this is just a really amazing remix and refine, and it's made Thorr just exceptionally better. Thorr had completely fallen off at this point, and so now she's absolutely going to be one of the best Gale Force mythics in the entire game, and especially in Astra season where she can just perform amazingly. So very big win for Thorr, extremely happy as a plus 10 Thorr owner. But with that said, let's move on to the final refine of this batch, a unit who holds a very special place in my heart, Pirate Tibarn. So just in case you don't know, when I started my YouTube channel, my very first video was Beast Gale Force, which I called Beast Force. And the premier unit on that banner was Pirate Tibarn and Fallen Edelgard. And these two like were my main units. They were my main carries for Ether Rates, and a lot of my videos revolved around them. So getting to see a chance to use my Pirate Tibarn again, now he's plus 10, right, is going to be so cool. And this refine is kind of cracked. So we have Sky Pirate Claw. This has Slaying, and then if number of adjacent allies other than Beast or Dragon allies is less than or equal to 1, or if he's transformed, he'll get attack and speed plus 5 during combat, and he'll inflict attack minus 5 on the foe during combat. He'll get a guaranteed follow-up attack, and then he gets damage reduction halving, and he also heals 7 HP after combat, and then he gets the Beast Flying transformation. So this is a little bit of an upgrade to his base weapon, right? You're getting that extra speed in there, which is nice. You're getting damage reduction halving, which is a godsend. I am so glad to see that. That is the one effect I was really worried about him not getting, because then he has to run like Fierce Beast as a special instead of Gale Force, right? So having that there is massive, very, very big deal. The one major downside here is that the 7 HP after combat healing. I don't know why they are obsessed with giving Beast healing in just every single skill they have, and now weapons too. It definitely hurts him as like a Gale Force initiator. You don't want healing, right? You want to be able to get into that 50% HP range so you can have Wings of Mercies coming in, right? Which is a big downside in my opinion. Now, obviously, you don't have to run as a Gale Force initiator anymore. You could use someone more conventional, like let's say Felix or like Sharena or Golveg or Sigurd or whoever else, and you can have him as a follow-up unit. And if you have him as a follow-up unit, the healing isn't that big of a detriment. It's not that big of a deal. So it's probably the route we'll end up going with him. But let's talk about the rest of his refine, because that's where it gets really juicy. So if at start of turn, if you meet the HP condition of 25%, you're going to inflict a visible speed and defense of -7, exposure, and frozen on the closest foes and foes within 2 spaces of that foe through their next action. And then also, if you meet the HP condition of 25%, you get plus $5 stats during combat, you get 50% true damage based off your attack, and you get anti-guard. And so this is where things just get nuts. First of all, he gets the key effects he really wanted, which was anti-guard. It's going to help him Gale Force way better. 15% true damage, which is nice, allow him to get some more killing power. But then he gets this really unique and powerful support in exposure and frozen. The reason why is, one, of course, exposure gives you that extra 10 true damage per hit, which is very nice and can help you a ton in your Gale Force clears, just letting your like less powerful units get through those bigger, bulkier units, or even allow you to get through those like bulky front lines, which is really nice. But then you have Frozen, and Frozen is a very powerful and unique effect. So originally, Frozen was kind of introduced with Diamant, where Diamant had this effect where he could make it more difficult for foes to double him, but it kind of worked on him and Diamant, so it wasn't all that great. And so when we got the actual version of Frozen, it was on Summer Rid. And Summer Rid was a very underrated unit. A lot of people were talking about how great this unit was, and he was very solid. He's definitely not like a meta-defining unit, but Frozen was really powerful because he could make it so it's just impossible to double certain characters. And as you know, a lot of units currently, if they can't get doubled, they're not dying. Something like Duo Fjorm, sometimes even like Felix, right? And so Frozen is a very powerful support, as it essentially just makes it really, really difficult to double these units. And now we have it on yet another unit like Tibarn. And I think this is just really, really cool, really powerful. It allows Tibarn to fit into other game modes other than just Ether Raid's offense as like a Gale Force unit. You could even use him in something like Summer Duels possibly, where he can kind of act like a weird Seteth, where he's not a fully supportive unit, but he offers very key support like Frozen, right? Allowing your Fjorm to just be kind of impossible to take down from range, which is really, really cool. I love this a ton. So not only did they make Tibarn like really strong at his already existing role, they've also given him a much more flexible variety in what he can do with this new Frozen status. And as a Gale Forcer himself, he even offers support to the entire Gale Force team, which is very valuable as well. And so when it comes to like Tibarn himself, I think this is a great refine, absolutely amazing. One of the better ones we've gotten, and very, very unique. I'm extremely happy with it. And I'm really excited to try out some different builds. I think Wings of Mercy Echo is going to be a very big deal on him, as they will just allow him to run very powerful B skills, right? Which is what he wants. So I'm super excited to give my Pirate Tibarn a full new build and see what he can really do. Okay, with that said, let's move on to who won the Refine War of November. So up in S tier, I'm going to have Thorr. I think Thorr just very clearly won this Refine batch when you include the remix, right? The Refine is almost perfect. It just doesn't have that DR halving, but overall it just makes her a very powerful Astra Anima Mythic, especially for those Gale Force strategies. Right next to her, I'm going to have Pirate Tibarn. And I think the big thing here is, like, yes, he got a nice upgrade, but that Frozen effect is so strong. It's such a powerful effect to have in a speed-based meta, which we kind of are in. We're kind of in a speed resistance-based meta. It's kind of going back and forth a little bit. But I think on those teams where speed really matters, he's going to be a great unit to have there. It's really going to come down to like how you can fit him into the team, right? Because he can't use the Sigurd ring, which is a big deal because he already has extra movement built into his weapon. So I think he will be very powerful, but it's going to come down to very creative people to be able to use him to his full power. In A tier, we're going to have Jill, Odor, and Shamir. All three of them got very solid refines in my opinion. Odor's remix was definitely underwhelming, but overall they all got a lot better and can perform better in their existing roles. And in Jill's case, she now offers a new level of support, which is really unique and cool. And the same could be said with Odor, where he gets to fit into that Katie and Lynn role for Summoner duels. Down in B tier, we're going to have Guinevere and Dithorba. I think both of them got decent refines. Guinevere definitely got a lot of things she wanted, and it allows her to fit into that mage tank role better than she currently could. But once again, that mage role tank isn't really an existing role in our current meta, and just isn't all that great considering we have so many variety of ranged threats, including a lot of like defense targeting foes like Bernadetta and now Lucina. And then we have Dithorba, and I think Dithorba once again just cannot compete with the other level of melee flyers we currently have in the meta. She's definitely not bad, but she's just not up to the same level as some of the other units we have. And so I'm going to put her down in B, where like I think it's a good refine, just nothing crazy meta broken. Now with that said, I'd love to hear from you. Are you excited about these refines as I am? Which refine is your favorite, and which build are you going to be giving your favorite units? I'd love to hear about that because I'm so excited to try out different things. So definitely tell me all your creative ideas down in the comment section. As always, I thank all my members for their constant support, and if you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. This is Little Oblivion. I'll catch you all later with more Fire Emblem Heroes.